Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan M.S. Pearce, and I'm joined today, super excited, as I always am with all my guests, to be joined by someone whom you might have seen a lot if you hang around the YouTubes and if you are interested in Ukraine and you know anything about NAFO. His face is a familiar one if you have seen convoys of NAFO trucks be delivered to willing receivers of some awesome kit. It's Alex, essentially from NAFO, and he has come to talk to us about his experiences, why he's doing what he's doing, what got him into doing what he's doing, and what is it he is actually doing. So thank you, Alex, for joining. It's really a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Jonathan, and hello to all your viewers that are watching.
Excellent stuff. Well, look,
I ask myself every day, what am I doing? So it's been an interesting journey for sure, mate.
Well, okay. So first of all, just explain what, for those uninitiated, and I'm sure there won't be that many, explain what it is NAFO is and what you are doing, just broadly speaking, at the moment, before we kind of rewind and say, well, how did you get there?
Sure, mate. Yeah, so NAFO stands for North Atlantic Fellows Organization, which is a spin-off of NATO. It's just a group of people that adopted a tag to support Ukraine in its fight against Russia. And within that, we in the 69 Sniffing Brigade run quite a large charitable fund that delivers predominantly pickup trucks, but also drones and other equipment directly to the armed forces of Ukraine. And we do that by raising money from like-minded people who understand that this is good versus evil, and a fight that we all need to be involved in. And channels like yourselves, other YouTubers, private donors, all enable us to deliver all of this kit. And, we provide a convoy on a monthly basis, and I'm currently in transit at the moment to go and get some more trucks, including, I believe, one of yours, mate.
Well, this is, I mean, the fantastic thing is that we decided, it's been a long time in the making. We tried to raise for 3 units, and in the end, they all fell through for different reasons. Some quite sad, like one guy we were trying to raise for was a drone operator in a unit in the 72nd down in Vuhledar, and then his commander just got blown up standing right next to him with a mistake with the drones. Sometimes with these drones are dangerous and you're handling explosives and mistakes happen, and his commander, unfortunately, that was the end of him, and he's in rehab in Kiev now, the man who we get. So that was one of the reasons one fell through. And then another one already had vehicles just delivered, and another one, it's all to do with the paperwork, the Soviet era kind of paperwork, which you understand, actually you need to have some things in place, but there's a lot of that going on. And so in the end, we was like, okay, you guys decide who we're raising for, and then you guys came through, which is awesome. But yes, as you say, and sorry to go on, we are raising money for, well, initially it was 1 truck, and before I did my live to introduce it, we'd raised enough for 1 truck. I was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. So we've bitten off a rather bigger chunk now and are raising for a 2nd truck. So that 1st truck, you say, is going to be on the convoy in November.
I'm pretty sure, buddy. Yeah, I mean, you and your community have raised an incredible amount of money in a short space of time. It is amazing, and I think it never ceases to amaze me how quickly or how continuous the support is that people are giving. Like, where in some instances we're seeing Western governments, our own in the UK, not committing as quickly. We've only seen our ability to raise funds and build bigger and bigger convoys grow, and that's just because of normal people basically helping.
That's an interesting point, because actually we do always worry about fatigue in the support for Ukraine, both internationally and on a kind of personal basis. Have have you seen interest drop off? Is it harder to fundraise at the moment? Are you having less people asking for fewer people asking for trucks?
Yeah, I mean, fundraising is super hard. So we are incredibly grateful every time we manage to raise anything. And we have to work quite hard to meet new people that are up for it, like yourself, and try and keep things going. It's not easy. Because of the scale of the war, the demand for trucks is just incredible. So, we have far more requests for trucks than we can ever deliver on, and so we have to make choices and prioritize, or make people wait, and it's quite difficult.
Yeah, I was speaking to you just before we came live. Like the scale of what you do now is quite incredible. And as I say, we'll get onto like how you got there and kind of where, what it was when you were involved right at the beginning. But it's almost like if it wasn't a charity, it's like this multinational business, if you like, that is taking on trucks, buying and would be selling, but buying and giving trucks away, but fixing them up, making sure they're fit for purpose, making sure you're reacting to what the demands are from the front lines, etc., etc. And now it gives a little sense of the scale of what you do.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, this when we deliver the next convoy, we'll probably be up to about 500 trucks. So
wow,
that's quite a lot of trucks. So we are fairly well known as a provider of trucks within the military in Ukraine, and we have people that are constantly buying trucks from across Europe. We have garages, our own garage that is constantly full of trucks, repairing them, militarizing them.
Is that a garage that was previously just a regular garage that you then knew someone and then said, can you take on doing this truck? And then that's grown and grown. And does that garage do any other work, or is it just like NAFO trucks?
There's actually two of them, and yeah, they're both people that are known, and it did do other work, but now it's just full of pretty much our trucks. Yeah.
That's incredible.
It's like a military truck garage now, and it's not a small garage; it's a big garage.
Wow.
So yeah, it's quite bonkers. And then there's people that are full-time managing the relationships with the Ukrainian military, other people doing marketing, people doing the legal paperwork, people managing the convoy itself, because it's actually quite a significant logistics operation to move that much equipment and people into the country, and then run the actual handover and all the stuff that goes with it over the weekend when the trucks arrive. So it is like a big not-for-profit crowdsourced military truck startup, basically.
Incredible. And have you found that over the time you've been doing it, the price of trucks has gone up? Have you affected the market for these kind of, and also tell us about what sort of trucks are the best for you?
Yeah, definitely, mate. So yeah, anyone that's looking to buy a reliable but roughly 10-year-old pickup truck within the areas that we buy it will be very upset with us in the common market, because they've pretty much doubled in price since the outbreak of the war. And that's not just us, that's
Wow.
private individuals buying them or other people. But yeah, it's been bad. And we focus on reliable, high quality pickup trucks. So a lot of Toyota Hiluxes. We do buy Mitsubishi L200s, Ford Rangers, in the some Isuzus as well. And then we do custom made things as well. So you can see that guy there, and behind him there's one with a bit of a bigger roof on it, off his right shoulder there. We convert them into what they call CASEVAC trucks, so casualty evacuation vehicles. So
which is this one that you look around. It's fascinating, actually, this video where you look around this and show us all the modifications you've made, particularly inside. This one's, as you say, CASEVAC, and it's got like blue and red lights in there for different reasons and stuff, and also
Yeah, exactly. It's there. It has that stuff in it because the lighting, for example, is not for a particularly nice reason. It helps show blood and the wounds and the injury to someone in the back for the combat medics. So everything that's changed is this sort of the essential stuff to help save people's lives, be it in the back of that casualty evacuation vehicle or the camouflage, the night vision, those mud tires. They were fitted because we were supplying a lot of trucks to Bakhmut when Bakhmut was still held by Ukraine. And back then there was a road called the Road of Life that was very muddy. And unless you could maintain grip on the road and still travel at high speeds, you would essentially die. And there were, a lot of blown up vehicles, pickup trucks down that road. But
yeah, that was the remote through even if Skurza, I think, and Kromova. Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and you had to have good truck with good suspension, good tires, and then you would be okay. And ours were quite regularly getting through into Bakhmut, and we had a lot of people say it saved their lives. And after that, they became quite popular.
Wow. So it's interesting seeing these videos. Like this is, I presume, is that Vilnius or no, Tallinn, or somewhere. But like you must, I presume you regularly do this. So do you just get? Does everyone know who you are now in these places where you line up your NAFO trucks?
So this here is in Ukraine. This video that you
Right.
see
Okay.
there. That in the background is the Lavra, which was the Russian Orthodox Church. So it's a very famous site, and Ukraine has taken it back off the Russians, and they like us putting trucks outside the front of it with automatic gun on it because that makes everyone smile. Yes, we are known. That obviously comes with some degree of risk, but
Yeah.
I think what we're doing is important.
Yeah. And do you find that because well, first of all, I guess maybe this is part of your journey into it because Estonia or Lithuania or the Baltics seem to have quite a lot to do with what you're doing. And the Baltics are obviously strong supporters of Ukraine in general terms. And it'd be interesting to see how sort of well respected or what have you are there. But why is there that connection with NAFO? How did NAFO start, and how did you get involved?
Yeah, the Estonians have a clear reason to be involved. They have a border with Russia. They've lived under Soviet oppression, and they don't want that happening again to them or to their families. My involvement is I'm British, but my grandfather's Ukrainian, and I have family in Ivano-Frankivsk. So I have a lot of family there. So for me, it's a duty to be involved. It wasn't a difficult decision. It's just felt natural.
And so talk us through then the beginning of the war for you. What was that experience, and how did you react, and what were your initial movements and whatnot?
I was pretty horrified, mate. To be honest, I was living in I was living in Portugal when the full scale invasion happened, and I was watching that happen live and fairly shocked by it all, and started trying to help. At the time, my mother was very ill, and so I didn't move to Ukraine at that point because I didn't want to cause her more stress. She then passed away, and after that, that's okay, mate. It happens. And after that, I became more heavily involved. Fundraised a lot of money myself for trucks. Maybe fundraised 10 trucks. Did 10 convoys, and then eventually moved full time into Ukraine and help run the charity there.
I remember it might be the first convoy, it might be one soon after, but seeing these, it looked like it was like some kind of hotel somewhere that kind of overlooked somewhere down with water, and I remember there being all these people meeting the different drivers and handing over the flags and just being utterly amazed at how cool that was. And just thinking already this was just a phenomenon that was should be so respected.
Yeah, like so there was a convoy handover by the Dnipro River. Like if
I think it might have been that one. Was there like drone? Was there a drone like also filming it as well?
Yeah, there was a drone, and that was my first convoy actually, I think.
Yeah, that was awesome.
It was, yeah, and we've delivered trucks there. We've delivered them into the east of Ukraine. We did the Kursk campaign recently and went up that direction and delivered some there. But predominantly, we don't take unnecessary risks, and the actual battlefield has changed a lot. Even since we first started with the rise of drones, it's a lot more dangerous closer to the front line today than it was 12 months ago, for example.
So do you deliver them centrally into Ukraine or closer to the actual units then?
We tend to hand them over in the Kyiv region, yeah. So it's sometimes we might take certain things elsewhere, but predominantly we do the big handover that you see those videos on YouTube, etc. And everyone comes to us, and that sort of works for units because everyone needs a rotation from the front and a rest, etc. So it's a chance for a couple of days for them as well to have a bit of a break and then get back. Yeah.
And actually, here we have Rick, the Ukrainian channel member. I went around near the front lines with him, with Greg and Zhenya, and when I had my 10 days in Ukraine, and so that's good old Rick, who's been heavily involved in fundraising, and he's helped in fact, helping with our one in directing us, so on and so forth. So that's you guys hanging out there together. Obviously, I presume in Kyiv.
Yeah, absolutely, Jonathan. And Rick is super cool guy. He's a very kind man. He's like repeatedly doing fundraisers now for the charity as well. You've obviously hung out with him as well. He does his best for Ukraine.
Yeah, well, I was having a meal with him on my last night there, and he sat down and interviewed me, and he like really put me on the spot because we've been fundraising for trucks through Greg and Zhenya, and we've done our own separate thing. But it's like, so when are you doing a NAFO truck, mate? When are you? I'm like, okay, next week, and that's kind of that was back in February, right? And it's taken us this long to get here through all these cock ups and whatnot. Well, not cock ups, it's the nature of the beast. But yeah, we're here now, so. That's awesome. Talking about drones, because as you say, drones are like a massive challenge. You both provide drones, so it's kind of an extra thing that you do. Talk us about the other things that you provide for units other than the trucks, but then also modifications to the trucks, such as do you provide any anti-drone capabilities?
Yeah. So I'll start with the truck. So we do just pickup trucks. We do the casualty evacuation truck you showed that video of. We do a drone command bus, which is like if you've got a big reconnaissance drone. So Ukraine has things maybe like Shark or Poseidon or Leleka. Yeah. These are big drones. These trucks are made so they've got screens in it. The guys control and monitor the drone from within the truck. They can put the drones in the truck, put Starlink, etc. So we make that specifically. All the trucks, yes, they come with jammers. The jammers are selected based on the frequencies they need to be working on for that specific bit of the front line. So it's not just a one size fits all. Depending on where you are, be it Kherson or Kharkiv or Kursk, you might need a different type of frequency to be jammed. So everything's custom made. Yeah, that's it there. This is the old drone bus. It's a couple of the units that I'm quite good friends with. They were basically taking these buses and then having to modify them in their workshop afterwards. And it was taking maybe 6 weeks, 8 weeks before they were then going to the front line. So we were like, well, this is stupid, like we could
absolutely.
do this in the workshop and you hand it over and you can just take it straight to war. So they gave us their internal specifications, and we built that, and then so it's ready to go straight to battle when we hand it over.
That's brilliant. That is such a cool thing to do, which is like, you are just making these guys' lives easier in all these different ways, not only with like giving them stuff that they really bloody need, but also stuff that they really bloody need and don't have to do anything with, and etc etc. So that comes with like drone jamming capabilities, as well as you say, with those buses they've got command centers inside. How do you go? I mean, goodness me, if I was like, right, I'm going to go and sort out a drone bus in Hampshire in the UK, and I'm going to get that out to Ukraine, I'd be like, right, I can get myself a second-hand van, but I can sort that out, and then I'd be like, where do I bloody start with anti-drone capabilities and getting this thing done up to be in a war zone? Like, how do you even start with that?
Yeah, I guess it's a good point, mate. Like, I guess everyone, like Ragnar and me, and everyone comes from a startup business background, so
Right.
which is just like you just do stuff. So I think everyone has that mentality. We've got an amazing team of people, though, that not only have the same values, but they know different things really well. So if we need to know about the right jammers, then we can speak to people, or we know people that know that, etc., etc. So I think by having a good team, you can do amazing things. And we're very lucky to have the people involved with the charity running it on a day-to-day basis that we do.
Do you use, because there might be a tension here between like doing everything outside of Ukraine, but then that it would be nice if you could use Ukrainian stuff to support Ukrainian industry and expertise. Is there a tension there? Do you do everything outside of Ukraine, or do you pull on some technology and equipment from inside Ukraine?
Yeah, so all the jammers are Ukrainian, all the night vision's Ukrainian. It's all fitted in Ukraine and purchased from the defense tech businesses. The trucks are not, because there isn't the trucks in Ukraine. And obviously when we take them into Ukraine, we want to hand them over and take them to war. So we have our mechanics that are trusted in Europe, in Estonia, that make sure the truck's fine before it joins a convoy and goes into Ukraine. So the bits that can be done in Ukraine are done in Ukraine, and because we do want to support the economy as well and what's going on there. But the stuff that's better off doing outside is done outside.
Yeah. When I was in Ukraine, I was staggered at the amount of British and Irish number plates and right-hand drive vehicles. What proportion of your vehicles do you provide that are right-hand drive?
At the moment, like, we're buying more in the UK because we've exhausted the market in Estonia, Norway, Sweden, etc. So we have been grabbing them from the UK and shipping them over to Estonia and then driving them in. Like, it's actually still cost effective to do that. The price rise that's happened in the Baltics. But it's a more challenging drive with the steering wheel on the wrong side to drive 2,000 kilometers. Like, if you want to overtake something, you have to trust your passenger. definitely.
So, like, I remember like when this was happening early on in the war, there were some reports that actually this was being something of an advantage because snipers would often aim for the driver's side, which would be on the left-hand side, and people driving right-hand drive British cars are like, "Whew, got away with that one." As a bullet like slams through into the passenger seat. I mean, not so good if you're the passenger, but like that's I guess a minor advantage you might have, but yeah, otherwise it's I guess a little bit challenging.
Yeah, and it's absolutely true, Jonathan. You're right. You know, like when a truck, if there is a sniper, then they will aim for the driver, and if the number plate is changed to a black military plate, they can't tell it's not Ukraine, or so they would just shoot the passenger first. Yeah, it's definitely a small benefit.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so what other bits and pieces? So you're getting drone jamming sorted out, and maybe night vision and some of the other things you said with regard to Kazovac, with the trucks. What's the sort of equipment that outside of the vehicles that you also started providing, and why is it you started doing that?
So we do drones, a lot of reconnaissance drones. So things like Mavics or Aurtels, things that people use to see where the enemy are, to redirect artillery or other different things, which are expendable items. So we probably go through tens of thousands of these per month in Ukraine across the front line. So they don't last very long. You have FPV drones, which are single-use drones, should we say, and they've become very lethal when modified in a certain way. And I think that's an innovation that's probably primarily driven from Ukraine not having enough weaponry,
artillery,
basically. Artillery, right? When you don't have enough kit, you have to innovate, and that's what we've seen with those types of drones. And we've there are now interceptor drones. So one of the most dangerous things that Russia has is the ability to see the battlefield and therefore direct very lethal weapons, be it glided bombs or Iskander ballistic missiles. And they have a lot of very good reconnaissance drones. So we have definitely
or interestingly, you could say a lot of, in the context, not that good, but they don't need to be good. Like the Orlan 10 and the Orlan 30 are relatively cheap drones, but they've been using them since before the war, and they use them really effectively. And these Zala and Supercan drones. And I read a report the other day, or a claim the other day, that they were using 1,000 to 1,500 every day of these. And you're like, right across the front line. I was like, that's insane. Now, I don't know if that's at all true, but you see montages now of these interceptor drones taking them out. Ukraine have obviously recognized that this was one of the major challenges, one of the major objectives they needed to sort out, was the ability to spot for Iskanders, artillery, all sorts of different strikes. So you're providing those interceptor drones.
Yeah, I mean, for everything that you said, absolutely. And the more we can blind them, the less lethal they can be with all of those weapons that you said, or the Zala and Lancet. Lancet's a very horrible weapon. And yes, you can now buy those interceptors, and they're relatively low cost to use. And there's a lot more in
What's the difference? What's the difference between an interceptor and a I don't know, a regular drone?
Very honestly, at the moment, some of them are FPV, right? So you're still literally piloting the thing.
Yeah.
But you're going to fly. It's going to go higher because it's got to get up to the height of an Orlan. It's got to go fast enough, and then you're just going to basically just crash it into the thing. So it's the actual.
Because I've been. Sorry, I've been trying to work. You've answered the question, because I've been trying to work out whether they carry munitions or not, or whether they just do it on crashing into them. And I've seen a couple of videos where you luckily get the the sun's obviously behind, and you get a silhouette of the drone before it hits like the super cam or whatever, and you see the silhouette of what it looks like, and it's got a massive package on it. But some people are saying that's actually battery to give it extra power to do all of this stuff, and it's not actually a munition. So do they just slam them in?
It depends. Like most of them do have a little munition. Like now,
Right.
like when they were before they'd made them specifically for interception, so they do now have like a detonator that then explodes. But
Yeah.
you might have seen the videos where someone's just put a stick on it, like some sort of medieval joust.
Yeah.
Right?
I saw that early doors. Yeah.
Just, like if I hit the other drone in the right place, I'm probably going to damage it enough that it will crash out the sky anyway.
But that's usually like a quadcopter on quadcopter, isn't it? Rather than on a supercam. Yeah.
But the at the moment the critical success factor, should we say, is the pilot. So
right,
if you have a good pilot, you can pilot and crash into a tank or into an Orlan or whatever, but you're still relying on a pilot. You know, where things will go is they will be autonomous and automated, and will remove that pilot from the equation. And both sides are working on that at the moment.
Yeah, you know, AI, as we will be experiencing the Terminator at some point. There is no doubt about this. Science fiction becomes science fact. It is quite incredible. But yeah.
Definitely. You know, we've opened Pandora's box towards, you know, Skynet and the Terminator. Now it's just about making sure that the good guys have better Terminators than the bad guys. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, this arms race has very serious ramifications, and in fact, that's really interesting. There must be people in the corridors of power that are saying, right, AI, we need to harness AI before they harness AI, because otherwise, you know, things could go Pete Tong. So, yeah,
I think you know, this type of technology existed, or autonomous targeting. You know, we've had it in NATO militaries, but what happens when you're at peace, understandably and rightly, is there's much more of a debate around the ethics of it and the law of it and the morality of it and so on and so forth. When you're fighting for existential survival, you don't really care about that anymore.
yeah,
You will use anything to try and survive, and that's the difference. Is it's AI is a debate in a safe place, but in a full-scale war zone, you will use anything.
You're going to be using that, yeah.
Damn
straight.
Yeah, that's the difference.
So you've mentioned Ragnar a couple of times. What's he like? What's his connection? Is he the guy that started it effectively? And you know, obviously you're there. Are there? You know, talk us through some of that early development of NAFO and experiences.
Yes, so the Sniffing Brigade absolutely is Estonian, and Ragnar Sass is an Estonian. He is an Estonian entrepreneur. He has close ties to Ukraine. He has businesses in Ukraine, and he started right at the beginning of the full scale invasion. Just like, I need to buy a truck, and then some of his mates chipped in and bought a truck, and they just drove these trucks into Ukraine. You know, no real master plan, just like, we've got some money, let's help. And you know, he is an industrious Estonian that is very passionate and driven, and he's pulled together other people along the way, and it's got to the point that it is now. I met him on that journey, and you know, we've all stuck together, and it's you know, Estonians are really great people. They're very different to British people. They're driven. They're serious. They're driven by results as well, which I quite liked. Right? You know,
are you saying that we're lazy and just take the piss all the time?
Yes.
Yeah, good point. Good point, my man.
Like, but you know, No, like the UK has been great for Ukraine. It's just Estonians are very different culturally, but very good fun as well when you get to know them. But it takes a while to build, that relationship and rapport with them as well. It's different. It's different. But I've very much enjoyed that experience, and Tallinn's a great place, and I like Estonia.
What are some of the and then you got involved and it just scaled up, I guess, fairly rapidly as people got involved, and you had NAFO on Twitter as well, like giving back, like tearing down disinformation through ridicule and whatnot. Do you think NAFO has been an effective antidote to some disinformation out there? Do you think the fellas are a useful component? I know Wired has just written an article about you guys and NAFO, and that's long overdue. But yeah, talk to us a little bit about these cartoon dogs.
Yeah, I do. I think it's been a great example of people getting together to do something for good, basically, and that you can unite people that have never met each other behind one purpose with shared values and have an impact. And that can be fighting disinformation online, which is definitely proven, raising huge amounts of money, as has been done. And it's super cool what just normal people can do when they all just get stuck in together. And it does make an impact on the outcome of this war. Everyone should be, proud that they are standing on the right side of history, in my opinion.
Yeah, because I think you said it earlier that, and I believe exactly the same, that this is kind of obvious good guys, bad guys. Like for me, the channel that does geopolitics and understanding the tangled web of international geopolitics that is our globe, that actually this conflict differs from so many other conflicts in that actually it's remarkably simple, that the moral clarity I think is evident, although I still argue with people who I'm a liberal lefty, right, and I've got mates on, say, Facebook who would otherwise agree with everything I say, but actually are somewhat anti-Ukraine and on account of they are anti-US imperialism. And so they take the NATO expansionist argument and they take that on, and they've actually sunk a lot of that Russian disinformation because actually it fits their model of how the US has been imperialistic over the decades, which to some degree they have, right? And there is truth to be said in that. But this isn't that. Like, this isn't Iraq, or like this isn't etc., etc. You can, any South American adventure that the US has had over the last 50, 70 years, right? This is something wholly different, where the Russians have invaded. It is clearly a megalomaniacal, a narcissistic dictator deciding to be Peter the Great again and expanding his empire, etc., etc., etc. Like, that's my opinion. Like, what is that broadly how you see it?
Yeah, absolutely. This is an attempt to wipe Ukraine off the face of the earth. So, a genocidal attempt to remove it from the world. Be it, you can see that not just, it's not just words, right? This is actually what's happening. I live quite near Bushehr and Irpin, and some of my colleagues are from there, and I know people that died and fought there. And when you visit those places or any of these other occupied places right now, they are being wiped out, and the women and children are killed, and that is what Russia will continue to do, because it does not want Ukraine to exist. And that doesn't matter basically if America is involved or not, right? Like, Ukraine has to fight, because otherwise it will literally not exist. It does not matter if America doesn't give its weapons, or the UK doesn't give its weapons, Ukraine will just get wiped out quicker. But
such a good point, such an obvious point, mate. Like, and I love these. I love these ones where you go, yeah, stop thinking about this. Imagine that doesn't exist. this would still be happening. And I use that argument quite a lot, but I just haven't used it in this context, which is, okay, imagine the US doesn't exist, right? Would this still be happening? Like, imagine NATO doesn't exist. Would this still be happening? You can maybe get some contrived argument. But no, I would argue that, you know, NATO didn't underwrite them going into Georgia. NATO didn't underwrite them going into Chechnya. Right? This is in the mold of those events and those incidences. And so, yeah, it's sorry, I'm on the verge of ranting.
Well, no, it's fine. And I think, you know, like there was a bit of pre-war support given, you know, training, javelins, NLAWs, etc., and some warding and guidance to the government in the few days before the invasion happened. You know, obviously you got the famous Zelensky quote, you know, I need ammo, not a ride, because they knew it was coming. But if Ukraine hadn't have fought so well and blown up so much of the Russians in those first few couple of weeks, then there's no way that the NATO and the West would have given them tanks and all this other stuff, right? They didn't do that to begin with. They thought they would get overrun within a couple of weeks. But when they started saying, hang on a minute, these guys are actually fighting quite well. If we give them a bit more kit, they're going to blow up a lot more Russian and weaken one of our enemies. Let's keep giving them more equipment now. You know, and that's really what's happened.
Well, let's go back to that early wartime. Like, what were your thoughts at the time? Like, how closely were you following it? I presume you, as you say, you were living in the UK at the time. So, like, was it something were you glued to the TV about this because of your connections to Ukraine? Did you think it was going to be a cakewalk for the Russians, or, you know, did you have more faith in the Ukrainians? And what was your experience?
I think I was quite blown away by some of the. I think we're all amazed if I go back to like absolutely mind-blowing content that was produced in those early days, like Zelensky with the defense minister outside that building at that time, like saying we're all still here. Like,
yeah, amazing.
I think we all remember that video, like, wow. Yeah. But I think we also saw like a 50-kilometer long Russian column that was heading towards Kyiv and thought, oh shit, this is not going to end well. And then it all ran out of fuel and got stuck and started getting blown up. And then everyone was like, fucking hell, well, excuse my language, but like, wow, this is happening. You know, like they're actually holding this. And then, as we know now, there were like unbelievably heroic going-ons in that early months of the war, from the battle for Hostomel Airport to holding out on Avastal to allow Ukraine to better prepare itself, that just changed the.
I think particularly they say Hostomel Airport is the one thing that, had that gone the other way, actually Kyiv would have fallen type thing. That, you know, that you get, as with all of history, right, you get these key like sliding doors moments where it dictates the outcome of X, Y, and Z. And for the war in Ukraine, I think Hostomel Airport will go down as one of the big ones. I personally think Turkey and the Montreux Convention and closing the Bosphorus Straits is, people fail to realize how freaking important that is, because if they didn't close the Bosphorus Straits, you'd have the entire Arctic fleet in it. You'd have the entire Russian fleet just sitting in the Black Sea, pummeling the crap out of Ukraine. And if that Montreux Convention wasn't enforced by Turkey, that's one of the things. So you get these moments. Anyway, sorry, I'm going off on one.
No, I agree, and you're right. And I think there's a few of these that we've touched on, a couple where those moments made it possible for everything to be where it is now. But it was, you know, very, very close to, you know, being a very bad situation for Ukraine, and obviously still is a very bad situation.
Well, yeah, because I was going to say, you speak to a lot of Ukrainians, obviously. What's your sense of where it is now, and what's the people, you know, the people you speak to, how do they feel about it? Because I'm up and down like a bloody roller coaster the whole time. I think from a macro point of view, I think Russia can't win, right? They can't. It's impossible for them to gain their maximalist objectives. So they can't win, but that doesn't mean Ukraine is going to win. So the most likely outcome is a frozen conflict, and that's really Ukraine losing. what's yours? But when you get to the micro, sorry, as the macro is, I think, if we all continue to support, our combined economies are much greater than Russia's, and actually, North Korea and China notwithstanding, technically this should be something that Ukraine should be able to win relatively easily if we all committed to it. But right now, when we're looking at micro and you're looking, oh my God, Prokrovsk is looking bad and blah, 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 you get all kind of depressed. So there are these two kind of visions of what's going on. What's your experience? What are your thoughts? And what about the people you speak to?
I think the war, war is a horrible thing, and it's taken a great toll on Ukraine and its people and the soldiers. I think winning is Ukraine still existing, so it's already winning because it does still stand today. I think we saw
good point
that, we saw that with the counteroffensive, that retaking land is very difficult and very costly. There are, just on that point alone, I think there are minefields that are 5 kilometers deep. And I think if you take the British Army and what we're trained to deal with, I think we deal with up to 500 meters is basically where our training goes. So there are defensive lines that no one in any NATO army has ever had to deal with or train for ever in their lives. So to retake land is incredibly difficult, and the Russians are brutal and their tactics are brutal, but they work, and they've got a lot of men and they've got a lot of guns, and now they've got a lot of careers as well. So they've got some very determined friends as well helping them, and this makes it for a very difficult battle. Basically, it's I think this next few months, is going to be a really important time. Not just geopolitically with Trump and blah 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 blah, but what actually happens in the battlefield. Can Ukraine hold the line and not lose more and more, and therefore have a reduced negotiating position?
Yeah, that's what I keep saying, that as sad as it is losing this territory, it's not the end of the world, but actually every bit of territory they lose, they have to regain either militarily or in negotiations. So you have to pay for it in some way. And therefore, there is an issue with losing territory. Like, it might not have intrinsic value, because that's a bunch of fields there, or that's a town that isn't particularly, tactically or operationally important. But in the whole scheme of things, they need to get that land back at some point. And I think it's unlikely that Ukraine are ever going to militarily do that in some large degree, unless the Russians capitulate because of a regime change or something back there. And this is a problem of having North Korea and China. So right at the beginning of the war, I wrote an article for Only Sky that was that stated that Russia can't win this war. Like, this is exactly what I said earlier. Like, they started with a special military operation, 3-day special military operation to install a puppet government. Right? They couldn't do that. After 3 days, you could tell that wasn't going to happen. So they lost. They lost then. The question is, okay, what do they want now, and what do Ukraine want now? And there was no way Russia can win unless the only option for Russia is full-on Chinese involvement. I said that's never going to happen, but I wasn't even thinking North Korea because they weren't even on the radar. So now you've got formal North Korean involvement and an increase in Chinese involvement. You're starting to think there is an issue here, and actually Russia can have wind in their sails. What do you think about that? What do Ukrainians think about the North Korean involvement and Chinese involvement?
I think that there's either two views. Like, one, that this is a war and it will end at some point, or this is the beginning of a much bigger war. And there are plenty of people that believe that latter point.
Really?
That we are seeing what's happening here with the axis of evil. You're seeing influence in the Middle East. You see influence in Africa. You have the issue of China, Taiwan as well. And it's just we're at this dangerous point in the world, and these points happen now and again, right? Either stuff can happen that means it escalates and escalates, or it all sort of chills out again. But it's definitely a very volatile period in the world in terms of violence. If you look at
Yeah. I mean, I fully agree. So I gave a talk in Stockbridge in Hampshire, like some month, I don't know how long ago, 6 months ago, something like that, saying we're in World War III, by the way, guys. Like, the whole premise of the talk is we are in World War III. It's just that most of you don't realize it. Like, we are doing everything we can to provide Ukraine with everything that you would when you're involved in a war, obviously, apart from troops on the front line. But even then, we have got special forces troops in Ukraine. We are fighting not just a conventional war in terms of providing Ukraine with everything and giving them money. So there's the conventional war, the economic war, the financial war, the sanctions war, the political war, the information war, and the cyber war. Like, all of these aspects, you have 50 countries involved supporting Ukraine in this conventional war, but we're not involved in all these other ways as well. And a bunch of other countries on the other side, and then everyone's vying for the support of these other countries. This is a world war. You might not believe it. You might not think it. Joe blogs on the street. I often walk down. I don't walk down the street very often. I've got multiple sclerosis. I often stumble occasionally into a pub and then just think, none of you guys give a shit about what's going on in Ukraine. And here I am, absolutely deep in this, thinking we're in a world war. And it's this world war that's happening under the radar for most of the population. And anyway.
I think so. But interestingly, it is. But it's also, if you look at what the outgoing commander of the British military said, what the British military said publicly, what our government says actually publicly, it said some very strong words around, to prepare for war. It talked about conscription, right? It's not like actually even at the military level that they've said, oh no, everything's okay. They've actually said, no, this is like a really dangerous time in the world, everyone. You need to get ready for war. And then everyone that's been in the news, and everyone's gone, nah, that's
not right. Another pint, please, mate.
And that's it. And that's sort of what happens is no one wants to believe that's real, right? It's horrible. Yeah. And that's basically the way that humans protect themselves in general. I think we wouldn't go too mad, and I think there'll be interventions and stuff that will slow it down, but it is a super dangerous period of time. And I think that is why our country has backed Ukraine so much, but also because I do think that generally the UK does get involved in morally right things now and again, and this is definitely a just, decent conflict to go and get stuck into and use our expertise.
Yeah, I'd have a slightly different view to that, in that ostensibly you're correct, but I think what's going on is that most countries, and actually I think you're right, at the top levels, most countries like Germany and France and UK and Italy, actually, Giorgia Meloni, I think they realise the seriousness of this, and actually things are happening at the top, and there's just panic. There's not enough money, but generally there's realisation in the intelligence services and among the defence, etc., that this is as serious as we say it is. I say that we get involved. I think anyone gets involved, any nation gets involved primarily on account of strategic objectives first, and this is one of those rare occasions where the strategic objectives absolutely align with the moral objectives as well. If we just went around doing things for moral reasons, we would have got involved in, say, Zimbabwe and Robert Mugabe, but we didn't. Why not? Because it didn't have natural resources, right? So you're like, okay, but yet we fired missiles into Libya and Syria, and okay, so we pick and choose what things we get involved in. The whole idea of Parker and Stone, Trey Parker and Stone's World Police. What's that puppet film they did? Team America. Team America,
Right.
right? It was riffing on the idea that America are the world police, and they just go around like arbitrating in these disputes for moral reasons,
Sure.
but which is like funny, and it's kind of, you think it's kind of, actually the more I think about it, it is not true. America goes and gets involved purely for strategic reasons, and occasionally morality tags along and says, oh yeah, by the way, that was the right thing to do as well. So we interpret things personally always morally, and we're not interested in so much in our national strategic interests, but from a kind of political point of view, from a government point of view, I think we're always thinking what's in the best interest of our nation. And I think Ukraine is wildly in our best interests, and also in our best moral interest as well. But anyway, sorry, that's me going off on one.
But the problem, you know, for Ukraine in just terms of as a economy, like other than war being very expensive, is, you know, again, the bits that the Russians have gone for are quite valuable. You know, so the Donbass is where the industry is and where the resources are. So they're not like, you know, invading like a pointless bit. From an economical standpoint, they're trying to nick the bits that are actually quite good to harvest stuff from as well.
Pokrovsk coal mines, you know, lithium,
you know,
and yeah.
So, you know, and this is part of the problem is with if there is a negotiated peace at like this point, like with that, you know, line drawn, for example, like there's some quite valuable stuff that is now not part of Ukraine or is now in occupied Russia, which is a problem economically because that used to be a part of the economy. So,
Yeah.
you know, Ukraine needs to then innovate new industry, you know, be it defense industry that it's doing a very good job on, but it also needs to be a country where people want to be as well. You know, like, because a lot of Ukrainians have left, and you know, martial law is preventing men from leave that aren't fighting. You know, if you lift the border restrictions without security guarantees, and with men maybe fearing that Russia might invade again, the risk is that everyone runs away because they'll be scared of being locked in and having to fight again. Yeah. So it's a really difficult problem that you want to stop fighting, but if you stop fighting and then lift all the rules and everyone leaves, you lose Ukraine anyway.
Yeah. And really, of course, you know, this leads also on to, was connected to the mobilization issue. And I'm somewhat defensive of the decision not to mobilize under 25s, or at least I understand it. There are lots of people calling, yeah, they need to mobilize everyone, 500,000, or mobilize all the young people. But then, of course, you lose all the skills. You know, there's this balance between having to fight to protect your country and having to protect your country to have something to fight for. And there's a really interesting tension there, because if you just gut your country, send everyone to the front lines, then like there's nothing there and there's nothing to go back to. No one's got the skills to. But then, you know, it was all right in World War II, and you know, you can start again, blah blah blah. So there are arguments both ways. Do you find that the people you talk to are often talking about mobilization?
Yeah, of course. Like, you know, like it's yes, and I'm pleased that I don't have to make decisions. And if you look at the man that is the president and what he looks like now compared to what he looks like before, you see the pressure and strains of being the person that is accountable for those decisions.
Hardest working politician on earth ever.
It's horrible. And he looks like a man that has had to make decisions that has killed lots of people and injured lots of people, and his life will never be the same again. And, you know, I know a lot of people that have died or been injured, and some people that fight and don't fight, and it's really hard. And there are like incredibly brave people, and there are people that are doing great stuff in business, and then there are people that are scared of dying, understandably. And it's a really difficult, horrible situation for everyone, I'd say.
Yeah. Goodness me. I report on what Zelensky does. I report every day with like three, 4, 5s. I do way too much stuff. Like, I'm surprised I've still got people actually bothering to tune in and listen to me bang on about the same old crap every day. But like,
well, there
when
he
I
goes
report,
again.
bloody like, oh, Zelensky's doing this. They've got storm shadows and not doing that, and this is yeah. But like, I report in my geopolitics video, like, oh, today Zelensky's doing this. He's there, and some days he's like in 5 different countries speaking to, like, it's just, he is the busiest. Like, say what you, I know he has his critics, and I know he has his people who adulate him, but actually, objectively speaking, and given the job he's had to do, he's easily the hardest working politician I've ever known. And it's just, what an incredible energy that man must have in order to keep doing what he's doing. But you know,
yeah, totally. I think he won the admiration of a lot of people in our country and around the world. And you know, it's not easy, I don't think, to stay political, should we say? Like, where quite clearly you're like, please give us some more air defense so they stop blowing us up, and no one gives you any air defense or more guns or weapons. In the end, you start going, give me the weapons, please, now, come on.
Yeah.
You know, like,
and difficult. How frustrating is it? Because we know what they need, and then it's just like, it's just a political will to get it there. And of course, for the poor Ukrainians, especially in that 7-month period of the impasse in the Congress in the US, where they're like, God, you've got it written down. We know what we're going to get if you just say yes. Like, that frustration of the having to be necessarily dependent on other people, and then other people dithering when there should be moral clarity. It must be insanely frustrating.
Yeah, really difficult, really difficult. No, but yeah, I think he does his best in. I've just, yeah, I think war is an incredibly horrible thing, and you know, we need to try and get this done and won in the right way. So yeah, the world is safer and Ukraine can survive and build again as a great nation.
So as we meander towards the end, have you got any experiences that you can recount that have given you great hope in humanity, and or maybe experiences that have shocked you? Any kind of in your travels and what you've been doing? Give us an insight into what some of your darkest moments and some of your lightest moments, maybe.
Wow. I mean, I think I've met like some of the most inspiring, amazing people that I've ever met in my life, that are genuinely like working so hard to try and save their country. It's amazing. I've seen people that I like and friends with change as human beings, even throughout the duration that I've known them, because of what war does to someone. And I find that very sad to see how their lives will never be the same again. And that's sad. And, you know, and I've seen like incredibly horrible things that, you know, I hope that the people don't ever have to experience in their life. And I think that's why, you know, we have to get this done and finished in Ukraine and make sure it doesn't escalate any further. But overall, I would say that, yeah, the Ukraine and its people are very much like British people, right? We have the same sort of humor. We have a good laugh. We are, you know, they're exactly the same as we are, really. And they've had an incredibly bad run of having a really rubbish neighbor. And
but just imagine what reality would be like. The silver lining to this whole war is that we all know what Ukraine is and who they are and where they are, and its geography and some of its culture. Like, I remember writing an article back in March 2022 that said Putin tried to eradicate Ukraine's identity, and he did the exact opposite. I can't remember what the title was. It was something like that. It was like, everyone now knows what the Ukrainian flag is. Everyone was displaying the Ukrainian flag on the Houses of Parliament or the Eiffel Tower. We now are knowing much, much more about Ukraine and about its people and its language and its culture and its geography and its industries and everything. it is. So the silver lining is that Ukraine is on the map now, and it's in our consciousnesses, and hopefully it will be able to use that to kind of springboard into a greater post-war success. That's what I'd hope.
I think that's a great outlook to have, Jonathan, and I think you're absolutely spot on that it didn't even really exist on most people's radars, and now it does, and it is a bastion of like wow and resilience and bravery against like an evil force. And if we can just get over this bit, it will become like it'll be the place that everyone wants to go and visit, isn't it? Who is not going to want to come to you if it's safe and meet these people or see Kyiv, and tourism will boom, and it can rebuild and
screw you, Putin.
Yeah, it'll be super cool. Like, so we just need to get to that as soon as we can, and the stuff that we do in the charity is a tiny little part of that, and your fundraiser and what everyone's doing, contributing, helps make it possible, mate, basically, and also talking about it and keeping it in people's minds
that is my main raison d'etre, so that I am here to correct disinformation when I find it, and to keep this in the public consciousness, and to keep this community knitted together in my little community in this corner of the internet, to be concerned with what is important and what is right. Just a few thank yous, if you don't mind, Alex. And please check out the NAFO fundraiser here. That is linked in the description below. We are doing a really good job. So we've raised, how much we've raised so far, according to the latest, 27,780 euros. So thank you to all of those. Mark Biscu is a Ukrainian and Olena living in Canada. So awesome to hear from Mark, as ever. What frustrates Ukrainians is knowing that this war could have been over a year ago had the West shown bravery equal to that of Zelensky. Thank you, NAFO. Absolutely, Mark. I don't disagree with that. Johnny Nedregard says, do you have an update on Jake Bro's truck? So that'd be for you. Obviously, Jake Bro, I interviewed him only last week for the second time. He's got a huge following, and he's a 30 truck at a time kind of guy.
Yeah, I mean, I messaged Jake like at the beginning of the year, going like, "Do you want to do a fundraiser?" And then he replied, going, "Oh, well, it's like my 40th birthday. Like, yeah, maybe I'll fundraise for 2 trucks." And I was like, "Great, we'll do like a little Jake Bro birthday thing." And then it suddenly raised $1 million, and it sort of escalated massively, basically. And yeah, what an amazing guy. And yes, he's then done it twice now. So then he's done another $1 million again for 1,000 days of war. And our commitment to Jake is to deliver all 1.1 million, I think it is, dollars worth of kit by the 1,000th day of war. And we've, there's 30 odd days left, 35 days. So the rest of his truck, so up to Jake Bro's 60, which is his 60th now, it will be coming in the next convoy.
That's amazing. Did that cause an absolute logistical nightmare for you? Like, oh, brilliant. Well done, Jake. Oh, shite. Like, now we've got to get, like we were doing all these other ones, and now we've got 30 extra trucks to go and find.
Totally, mate. Yeah. You got to buy them and then move them into the workshop. It's like, actually, like, wow, this is a big operation now, on top of, like you said, you got everything else, and then you just bang that on top, plus vast amounts of drones as well. So I think in the first one we brought hundreds of thousands of dollars of drones. So to actually do that, you've got to buy the drones, but you've also, because we've got a charity in Estonia, we've got one in Ukraine, you've got to transfer the money between charities as well, you've got to buy the equipment. It's a big operation to actually just manage it and then stay on top of it all and be completely transparent with everything as well at the same time. It's really important to show
that's
people.
Really important. Yeah.
Well,
talk to that fight. Just finally, transparency. How do you do that, and why is that important? I mean, it's pretty self-evident.
Because for us, it's the model of, you see the soldier requesting it, there's the truck that's brought, and then there's us handing it over to that person is like 100% key. I think this whole new model of a charity clearly showing you that if you give your money here, this is exactly what is going on, is a refreshing new way
Yeah,
of
I hadn't
doing
thought
charity.
about that. That can actually work right across the charity sector. That's a really interesting point. Actually, and social media is enabling that, where you can really show the benefit of what you're doing almost immediately.
Totally, and you think that, a traditional charity, Red Cross or whatever, you don't, right? You just, there's some general schemes or things that are going on that you're donating to. Here, it's like, I bought that Cassivac truck, it went to that combat medic, and he's literally then told us afterwards it saved 5 people's lives. So you can actually stand there and go, I saved those people's lives with my money.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
could not do that before.
it's
And that's
amazing.
why I think this works. And then, we have super low overheads and costs. So the actual amount that goes directly on the donation is absolutely huge compared to traditional charities as
Yeah.
well. And I think that's super important.
Absolutely. Thank you to Niels Clement for gifting 5 ATP Geopolitics memberships. Really kind of you to support the channel, and Kevin Forst as well. Likewise, Kevin's such a legend. And Johnny Nedregard as well, again there. So thanks, Johnny, for your Norwegian love there. I really appreciate it. And the final one, they exist, says Putin's own lifetime school investment job history equals the maximum planet damage few grown men can ever accomplish. He is... I can't help but think that decision to invade Ukraine is one of the worst decisions that a leader has made in the last 100 years. Last 70 years. It's just like it makes less sense than like Hitler's 1939 decision. Like I just can't get my head around. So I think history will look very poorly on Putin. What are your thoughts, Alex?
Think it's going to plan somehow. And I think it's a good example of that sort of dictatorship Soviet mindset that I'm pretty confident that he thought that it would be done in 3 days, and that it has gone horribly wrong since then. And the good example of that is, they were so sure that Ukraine would be like, oh, welcome, welcome, that they had
literally flat bunches of flowers.
And they had the guys in, the tunic, with the flags, at the front, because they thought that they would just be welcomed on the way in. And when
parade uniforms,
stopped, it was like, oh, Ukraine doesn't want us here, actually. And I think that's the problem, is he's lived in this echo chamber where he does believe his own madness, and now he has literally become like a film dictator, and it's sort of incredibly dangerous when someone's become like that, because they don't think rationally at all.
Yeah, I could wax it. You just said exactly what I said for a long time, which is, I consistently talk about he lives in an information bubble. He doesn't have a mobile phone, like smartphone. He doesn't use the internet. He's completely dependent on the information that's delivered to him on manila folders by particular people, which means that these people control what he knows, garbage in, garbage out. Oh, they're going to accept us with open arms. Okay, so how did that happen? How did the second greatest army in the world and this dictator not have the accurate understanding that the Ukrainians would reject the Russians if they invaded? Like, that's fundamentally, like, it's not just a little bit flawed. That is like mind-blowingly bad. Like, if our leaders in the democratic world would have made a decision of that shocking rubbishness, like, they'd just be ousted straight away. It's just like insanity.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. It is an unbelievably bad failing from a military perspective.
Yeah.
But it's not really on a macro level improved that much, compared to others.
No, they're just, because I don't really know that they've got an objective, right? That they've got a sense, like, that special military operation objective of like changing the government and then it'll be our puppet country. That didn't happen. Oh my God, we're now accidentally in a war. It was never meant to be a war. So it literally was a special military operation. Then it accidentally became a war, and I didn't quite know, and I still don't think they quite know what their objectives are. Like, as in, like, how much land do we want that would be victory? Like, where would be happy? And I don't think they know. And I think it's just, oh, throw more men at this and let's just hope they give up. Or I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm going to leave
Thank
you
you.
with some really, really positive vibes here, which talks to kind of what you were saying, like how wonderful people are and how cool communities like this are. So James Cowley says, I'm currently doing extra work so I can get a second patch. The thought that even if the truck saves one life is so worth it. Amazeballs. And
Yeah,
Michelle
nice.
Mars says, I'm taking extra hours at work too. It's going to Ukraine. Like,
yeah, it's cool, man. I think I thank you to both of you, and I think it's people doing extra because it's worth it and it's important, and they're sacrificing their own selves to help others is, for me, an important value to have. So you've clearly got some cool people that listen to your channel, Jonathan, and the people of Ukraine will be very grateful.
I like to think that. Well, look, Alex, thank you for your time. I know it's probably inordinately short. You're short on time. I'm sure you do way more than most of us mere mortals. Thanks for your time. I'd love to speak to you again at some future points. I'd love to get out to Estonia and see some vehicles myself. I'd love to be involved in something like that, just to be, to meet you guys doing that. But that's just a pipe dream of mine. Look, I really appreciate what you're doing, and also coming onto the channel and giving us a sense of what you do. Really cool. Do you have any sort of final words or whatnot?
No, I mean, just thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for all your support, and to everyone that listens to your channel. And it's been a pleasure to talk to everyone. And let's stay in touch, mate, and get this truck that everyone's contributing to out to Ukraine as quickly as possible, and try and get this war done.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, let's get this second truck done, guys, and we'll see that go to Ukraine. Well, look, stay on the line, Alex. But in the meantime, thank you to everyone in the live chat. I really do appreciate you always, and it's so fabulous to see that we are almost at 28,000 euros, which is 10,000 away. I hope we haven't bitten off more than we can chew. I'm sure we can do this. It's really nice to hear that Alex said that we're raising it at quite a nifty rate there, which is good to know. So we're doing all right, guys. We are doing all right. Anyway, yeah. Well, yeah. Good. And as someone says, we're just going from strength to strength. Richard Bennett, you are a major part of that community. Thank you so much. Anyway, thank you, Alex. Thank you to all of you guys. And I guess the last thing to say is Slava Ukraini.
Herom Slava.
Good on you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.